Hey everybody, what's going on? It's Bevo from Beach and Maine. I am sitting down here today with Chris Paradies. Chris, thank you for sitting with me again
It is
for the
my
second
pleasure.
time. Really quickly, introduce yourself and let's talk a little bit about how you got to this point and where you're going from here.
So just to ease back into it, I'm
Just-
Chris
just-
Paradies, and I'm a small business advocate,
Mhm.
and I'm also an intellectual property attorney and a U.S. registered patent attorney. So I help people with their intellectual property, and generally what I do is I just help businesses
Right.
build value in their companies. So and many people don't know this, but intellectual property is worth a lot more in a company than everything else you have other than sales.
Right.
So tangible assets, if you look at the S&P 500, on average, taking all the companies in the S&P 500, about 20% is tangible assets, 80% is intangibles. Intangibles are IP, intellectual property. So
Intellectual property is the ideas, right?
it's the ideas, it's the practices, it's the training that you have for your
Right.
employees, it's your customer experience,
Right.
it's your brand, it's everything that goes into building your reputation. It's all part of your intangibles. And it's really hard to define, and it's really hard to value. But fortunately, it's very easy to value the tangible things. And then all you have to do is look at the book value and say, well, this company is worth a lot more than those tangible things.
Right.
That's all intangibles. So, the run-of-the-mill entrepreneur that's starting out, a lot of them, there's polar opposites. And if you look at one polar opposite, they think that their ideas are worth tens of millions of dollars.
Right.
And they are wrong. Their ideas aren't worth tens of millions of dollars because it's going to take a lot of work to be able to make tens of millions of dollars off those ideas.
It's probably going to take tens of millions of dollars to make the ideas work.
So that is my crazy inventor clients. I have a crazy inventor come to me and they say, I have this invention. It's the best thing ever. It's worth tens of millions of dollars. And I have to start working with them saying, no, it might, if you were to go out and sell your invention right now today, it'd probably be worth $10,000 to some company. They might pay you a check for $10,000 if it's as good as you think. So let's start there and build the value of that.
Right.
And the opposite side of the spectrum, and it's a lot more entrepreneurs, they start out thinking they have nothing of value. They're going to have to build it all. But actually, when they come to that position where they're saying, I'm going to start my own business, they've already accumulated a lot of things. So, for me, in my business, I was working for a large law firm.
Gotcha.
But I had a relationship with a paralegal that I've been working with for 9 years.
Yeah.
And she came with me. And that relationship is worth a lot of intangibles, right?
Absolutely.
It's worth a lot of money because she knows exactly how I think and how I work. She knows how to do all the processes that have to be done in the back end. So that takes that weight off of my shoulders and I can delegate to her without even thinking about it. It's like, we talk by email now. She works from her house, I work from my house, and I will send an email saying, do this in 5 words, and she does a million things from those 5 words.
So what I'm getting from that part of the conversation is it's very important to have good people around you, especially when you're dealing with intellectual property.
And a lot of times when you're starting out as an entrepreneur with a new startup, you're carrying all those things with you.
Right.
So you're doing you have all the hats, you're doing all the jobs, you're doing things you're good at, you're doing things you're not good at.
Right.
Then the things you're not good at and you don't really know how to do, use 80% of your time. And the things that you're good at, you maybe give 20% of your time when it really needs to be 99.5% of the time you should be doing the things that you're really good at. But somebody's got to do them until you have the resources to bring on other people to do those things. And what you have to realize, and what we do in Co-Starters a lot, is we figure out what is it that I'm bad at and what do I need to bring on earliest and when can I bring that on without breaking the bank.
Right. I completely understand. That resonates with me so much because a lot of the times, I have good people around me, but a lot of the times I'm still doing a lot of the work, right? Because when when I'm away from those people, they have jobs, they have other things to do, and they have other lives to live. And when they're away, it's me.
And you want it done.
And I want it done.
So,
and I'm like, I got to sit down, grab my coffee or whatever my drink of choice is, and put on my headphones and get it done.
Right? And the best thing about being an entrepreneur is when you're working for yourself and you're building something is you can work through the night into like 5 a.m. and you still got energy because you know this has got to get done, and you see where you're going and how that's going to add to your company, and then you can make the next milestone that you have to make. And
accountability is super obvious when you're working by yourself.
Yes,
right?
It's super obvious, but it's also hard.
Right.
It's hard for a lot of entrepreneurs to be accountable because you get so many distractions. So you know you have to do X, Y, and Z. That's the critical thing in your company.
Right.
But you know, A, B, and C come along and it's like, hey, no, that looks shiny. I think I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
And you waste a week
so much time
doing the shiny thing when you knew you had to do X, Y, and Z. So that's why a lot of times we're in the Tampa Bay Innovation Center today, and their job is to really hold that entrepreneur accountable so that they accelerate through the program and they get to where they want to get to, and they actually meet all those milestones that are the essential milestones for them.
I'm glad you mentioned the Tampa Bay Innovation Center, and we spoke a little bit briefly about co-starters because you started doing, or once you left the bigger firm, you started a lot of your career doing volunteer work or mentoring work.
Even before I left the big firm.
Okay.
Basically, as soon as I knew that I wanted to work with small businesses, which was even before I moved to Tampa, moving to Tampa, I knew I wanted to work with smaller businesses because they're the ones that change lives.
Right.
So even when I started my practice inside Fowler White, I had like total independence because I was a 4th-year associate, which typically 4th-year associates don't get put in charge of a business unit inside of a large firm. But they had lost their patent attorney, and that guy had been gone like 3 months, and they had to hire somebody. And I came just at the right time, and they were like, "Yes." They were trying to convince me I should take that job and come next week. And fortunately I did, and fortunately I was able to bring a paralegal on because there were a lot of things that were falling through the cracks.
That's interesting. That's interesting because so having that job, it gave you a little bit of leeway to be able to start seeing where you wanted to put some of your other efforts. I
knew what I wanted to do, so I started volunteering, and they were good. They were supportive of me going and starting volunteering, giving away my time free to startups.
Gotcha.
Because you have to learn what startups need.
Right.
Just like any entrepreneur, you have to figure out what does your customer need.
Right.
And then, what do they want to pay for, and what gives them the most value, and how much value is that, and can I make a business out of it? So it turns out that all startups are similar in a lot of ways, especially the innovative and creative ones. They have the same needs, right? They have to discover what is their secret sauce, what is it that makes them special, that their customers value the most. And once they figure that out,
that they're good at,
yes,
that no one else is good at, not in the same way.
So this is the Venn diagram. All the things you're good at, and all the things your customers need, and that cross section between what you're good at and what your customers need, that is your sweet spot. That's your secret sauce, and you need to protect that. So I talk about building a hedge of protection around that secret sauce, and that's using intellectual property. It might be trade secrets. It might be the kinds of agreements you have with your end users. It could be the kinds of agreements you have with your vendors and your employees. It could be your brand, right? Building up a brand around that so everybody recognizes you as the expert in that rather than somebody else or somebody that's just starting out, because they recognize that that's what you're good at. So all of those things build that hedge of protection, and you can't build a fence with a single fence post, right? And that's what working in a law firm, you have these clients that come to you and they want a fence post. I want a trademark, and you're like, why do you want a trademark, right? And you're trying to get down to what they really need, because they usually have a need, and it could be they needed a copyright or they needed a lot of things, but their budget is usually this. I want to pay for this, not what you need. It would be a total waste of money spending that amount of money on that. But it wouldn't be a waste of money to spend that same amount of money on these things, because these things would actually protect your secret sauce and allow you to go out and make a good living doing that without having to worry about somebody else stealing your idea. So, there are all kinds of horror stories. I have seen firsthand people hire someone on, they're a great employee, right? And they come in and they're invaluable, and all of a sudden they leave.
Yeah.
And when they leave,
they take all that information with them.
They take all that information with them.
Yeah.
They take your customer list with them.
Right.
And they start going out and calling your customers and saying, you know what, I can offer this for less, and I'm going to give you a better deal. And all of a sudden you start seeing a few customers slipping away, all except for the loyal ones. You start seeing them slip away. And that's horrible, because not only are you losing business, not only did you lose somebody that was essential to your enterprise because they were your best employee, but you also feel totally betrayed, and now you're less likely to be willing to trust somebody in the future. But if you had done the right thing from the beginning, if you had protected that secret sauce, then you wouldn't have had to worry about sharing your recipe with that person.
Gotcha.
Because you would have had a non-compete, a non-solicitation, a non-disclosure agreement. They would have known that these are your trade secrets. They probably wouldn't have left you in the first place, because they would know that you're looking to protect that as your secret sauce.
Right.
And they would feel both convicted of doing something ethically wrong, and they would know that you could hire an attorney, and that attorney could close them down in a heartbeat.
Or they're invited to leave and just go start their own thing. Or just go somewhere else with regard to leave my stuff alone.
Right.
Leave my stuff here. And that's what all the non-disclosure, and that's what...
Yes.
That's exactly
you want to
what you're
protect
talking
your
about.
secret
You wanna
sauce. You don't care if they go out and start their own business doing something entirely different.
Right.
That would not be betrayal.
Right.
Right. Especially if they were upfront with you. I'm leaving in a couple of weeks because I'm going to start my own business. Okay, great. I'll even support you on that. I got some people that can probably work with you, right? And you would both benefit from that. But when somebody steals what is you consider your secret sauce and goes out and really betrays you, that is an awful experience. Does not have to happen.
Right.
And the same thing, if you're going out there, and I've worked with customers where their issue is they're coming from a larger company and they're going out and starting their own business, and they had one of these non-competes or something, or they should have known that they were violating something of that company, and that company comes down on them, or maybe some totally unrelated company. They go out and they start doing things, and they haven't checked to see who their competitors are, and some very large company will send them a cease and desist letter, which is legalese for a letter telling you got to stop doing what you're doing immediately, or we're going to sue you. And now they have tens of thousands of dollars in legal fees that they're facing at a time when they're trying to start a company, and it's going to kill them.
So how do we learn? We know we need this. When you're in that startup phase, we know it's going to take resources. Though that resource is money. But you've built with your company some stopgaps to where people can get a lot of that education, and they can figure out the things that they need without the top dollar price in the beginning. Right. So tell me a little bit about how that works.
That's what IP scaling does.
Right.
So IP scaling is a process where small business owners can come in. They can figure out what their secret sauce is. They can figure out the ways that they need to protect that particular secret sauce. And then they're in a position where they can go out and share the recipe. So they go through a series of videos and one-on-one calls with me, half-an-hour calls to figure out where they are and what they need to do next. And I try and tell them, which modules they need to really focus on, or maybe I'll work with them on, if they do need a patent, which is the rare exception. If they do need a patent, I'll work with them on writing up a provisional and getting a provisional filed so that they have a year from that time to be able to practice that invention and go out and publicize it to the world. And if they need to file a non-provisional or international application or whatever it is down the road, they can do that in a year. And so that can be done at no cost other than entering the program and figuring out what that is. Or if they need 10 trademarks because they have a brand name and a slogan and a logo, and you're good at this kind of stuff. You build this whole presence, right? You got the trade dress, all the colors and music that you get made for yourself, and you got this whole big brand you're going with. Well, all of those things can be protected, and some of them can be registered, and that prevents somebody else from stealing it and taking it. And usually, if you're doing that, you also need copyrights, right? You need to make sure that you own the copyrighted material that's being created for you, and you need to make sure that you license the copyrighted material that has not been created for you, but is somebody else's, and you need to make sure you either have an assignment or a license, because that's where you get sued, right? And that's where you can get tens of thousands of dollars. They can close down your website. You can, Google will stop running your ads. You'll be dead in the water and broke in a month, because you didn't do it the way you're supposed to do it.
So a little bit earlier, we talked about missing pieces, and having this conversation, this part of this conversation right now, I'm realizing in my own mind, there's a couple missing pieces. So I might need to take this course for myself, because I'm pretty good with making sure I got most of the right things in check, but something tells me that I need some other provisions put in place. So I might need to take this course.
It's building a fence. And if you left out half the fence, it doesn't really work.
Doesn't matter at all.
Right? It doesn't matter at all. Half a fence does not protect your secret sauce.
Okay, so note to self is I have to check myself into your course to get all these things taken care of. So,
and it's easy. I've made it. I understand where entrepreneurs are coming from, that they have way too many things to do. So it's really, you can do it with an hour a week for 10 weeks, and you can get everything started and pretty much done that you need done. Or you can hire my paralegal to help you get it done, or whatever, depending on your time versus your money. So it makes it very easy to delegate.
Cool.
If you need to delegate.
No, definitely. I mean, thinking about, I'm literally sitting here thinking about the future, and we all need these things. So I'm actually glad we're having this part of the conversation, because it helps me understand it a little more myself. That way I can go out and not just do it for myself, but preach it to other people, so that they understand why they need to have this same thing going for their businesses, no matter what their entry point is right now, how new they are to their business. So
and really, there comes a time, you know this, there comes a time in a business when you're bringing other people in. And before you cross that threshold where you're bringing other people, when it's all in your head and you're doing it all, you don't need intellectual property yet.
Right.
But as soon as you start bringing other people in, you need to worry about that piece, because when you bring people in, they walk back out and they take everything with them. Absolutely. That's not good. If you're starting to sell products and services, and you might be infringing somebody else's intellectual property, you need to have thought about that. You need to have done the due diligence to make sure that your brand is different enough from anybody who might sue you, big companies generally, that you don't have to worry about that, right? It's not something you can just take off your shoulders and say, that's done, I've done it, check.
It's so fortunate that co-starters in innovation, co-stars has you, because I don't think half of the people that participate understand this part of it, and that they have you sitting in that classroom, because they're only really thinking about, how am I going to get this going? How am I going to get this going? How much money is it going to take me? I only have this amount of money. Is this even a good idea? You're wrestling with all those things when you're sitting in that class for, 9 weeks or 10 weeks? And the clock's ticking, because you feel like in the end of this 9 weeks, I want to be ready to go.
Right.
Right. And I think because of that time frame and those circumstances, you kind of miss over the fact that you're even sitting in the classroom giving them this information. So I want to do a better job of just understanding this myself, and then do a better job at how to be an advocate for it, because it's super important, and you don't really understand. As soon as you hear lawyer, it's like, It's just over my head.
You don't have to master it, right? You don't have to say, okay, I'm going to know everything about this. You only have to know everything about your particular business. Right. You don't need to know everything about intellectual property, because that would be years of work to find out everything about intellectual property. So by going through something like IP scaling, you're just targeting in on those things that make a difference to you.
And how it applies to you specifically. Okay, so I'll learn more about IP scaling for sure. Chris, what's next for you? Where and I already know the answer to this, but what's next in the world of IP scaling for you? How does that look?
I am scaling my business. So I am basically transitioning from having a traditional but very small law firm now to mainly providing services through IP scaling to customers that I like working with, which are small businesses that are growing, that are changing lives, that are coming out with new products and services. It's the innovative and creative entrepreneurs out there that are doing new stuff and they're having fun at it, and they're trying to change the world. And I like working with those folks. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to transition to doing almost all this, and then the law firm things can be done by paralegals and patent agents and other law firms. And I can farm that work out, and it can still get done. But it's really the building, the hedge of protection, the knowledge, changing the mindset. Because as you know, as an entrepreneur, you go into it thinking either I'm in total overwhelm, there's no way I'm going to get through this, or you're so focused on where you're going that you can't see anything else around where you are. And I think it's just basically those extremes. There's hardly anybody that either isn't totally focused or isn't totally overwhelmed. Because there's so many things you have to do as a small business that it's just natural to be overwhelmed. So what you want to do is make as many things simple as you can and get as many things off as you can.
And figure out where those connections are and who the people are that can help you out in those areas. And I think this is what is probably the most important to me in my business while working with creative entrepreneurs, is making sure that I know some of the connections, so I can keep pointing them in directions where in areas where I'm not knowledgeable in those areas. So as I'm sitting down with them, much in the way that you're moving into with your IP scaling part of your business, I spend a lot of time one-on-one with my clients. And then we get to these points where there's something that I may not be as versed on, or I shouldn't really be doing it because I need to do other work. So just knowing who those people are and being able to collaborate and just almost kind of have this mindset of, we're not just small business. If you know where the right connections are and who the right people are, your business is actually much larger than it appears to be.
And that's what I did with my law firm. So I have this law firm. It's myself and my paralegal now. I had other attorneys before, but now I'm down to myself and this paralegal. And we file patents around the world. We're a global law firm from just myself and my paralegal. Now my paralegal does most of the work, but she's really, really super efficient at it, and she's one of these. She's a doer. I'm a learner. I'm a creative type person, and she's a doer. So she just does things phenomenally well, phenomenally fast, exactly the same way, according to SOP. And I can just give her that, and I know it's going to be done right. So, having those relationships where you can bring people in that complement you, that's something we talk about in Co-Starters, and it's something you have to find if you're going to be a successful business, because it really does come down to being a team. One person can only do so much.
But together, we're just way more powerful, way more efficient, if you can get in the same mindset with
you can find people that love doing the things that you don't like doing.
Oh my God.
Right? And they're perfectly happy doing it. You're like, bless you, because this is I would kill myself if I had to do that over and over and over again.
My eyeballs out for some of the work. Like Mason does PowerPoints and spreadsheets, and spreadsheets just kills my whole vibe. It kills my brain. It, like, as soon as you say spreadsheet, I'm like, nope. I'd rather go to sleep than deal with a spreadsheet. I'm just out of here. So definitely finding people that you can work with, and you can collaborate with, and that are doing things that, like you said, that complement you in ways that you're not really that great at. So,
right.
Absolutely. Chris, I thank you very much for sitting down with me.
I had fun.
Oh man, me too. And we had some follies, right,
yes.
along the way.
Yes.
And but that's part of the Unmanageables way for me, right? Is showing people that you can get these things done. There's going to be some mistakes along the way. You learn from them. You don't let them stop you, and you just keep going. So that's
learning
my
is
whole
good.
mission with
I like learning.
Yeah, me too. Absolutely. So I appreciate it, man. And we'll see you soon.
Great.
Thanks to everybody for watching. Talk to you.